Hi everyone, my name's Becky and I'm one of the new directors at VMG, and I wanted to do this really brief video update talking about our public affairs and campaigning work and a little bit more information about kind of me and my background, but also how I see the potential for VMG to move more into public affairs and campaigning work going forward in 2021. A bit of my background. I did a degree in politics and international relations at Loughborough University around 15 or so years ago, which was really, really interesting. I learned all about kind of the theory and different political structures in the UK and across the world, and different political systems, and, all sorts of, quite dry to be honest, but theoretical discussions about politics. So after I graduated, I got a job working for a Labour MP, and that was really fantastic because it gave me the opportunity to see what's the reality like. I've learnt all the theory, but what does it actually mean in practice? I spent 2.5 years working for an MP, so I got to, help write his speeches. I got to help work with constituents who had problems. I got to attend party conferences, tour school children around the House of Commons. Like, working for an MP is one of the most varied jobs, I'd say, that's out there. But it gave me such a good level of knowledge about, how to work with MPs and how to help them influence on issues that you want to work with. So after I finished working for an MP, I started working in public affairs, so essentially working in roles to help push forward and lobby for change in different organisations. I spent the last 10 years working for Blue Cross. So for those of you that haven't heard of Blue Cross, they're one of the leading animal welfare organisations in the UK, providing veterinary services for people on lower incomes, providing a rehoming service, as well as behaviour, education and pet bereavement. That's been amazing. I didn't know that much about animal welfare before I started working for Blue Cross, but I've learned so much over the last 10 years in terms of my knowledge on not only animal welfare and different animal issues, but also issues to do with the veterinary sector. And that's why I was really excited to get the opportunity to join the VMG board and kind of put some of my expertise over to the board and see how we can kind of increase the profile of VMG through our public affairs work. So I know not everybody has heard of public affairs, so I wanted to start with just a kind of brief definition of what public affairs is. So essentially, public affairs is the term used for strategic activity to influence the policy and political environment in which we operate. Often people think that's Westminster and just working with government and MPs. It's not. It's a little bit wider than that, but we can definitely talk about that a little bit later on. So what are the benefits of a good public affairs strategy? So I think there are probably a ton of benefits out there, but I wanted to highlight 6, which I think will be really key for us as an organisation at VMG. So it will enable us to change policy and priorities, whether that's with government, with other organisations, with devolved administrations. There's a real opportunity for us to be pushing for policy change, which is great. It will create lots of opportunities. Having a good public affairs strategy opens doors for you. We'll be taking part in lots of those conversations and looking for opportunities for us to push our agenda. So linked to that, we'll be able to raise the profile of VMG as an organisation, but also of the people that are our members, so you guys, the organisation more generally, and the issues that we are seeing as really key issues in the veterinary sector currently. It'll enable us to extend our network, to build our brand and our voice, and ultimately to generate, more and more positive relationships with, whether that with government or others, which ultimately mean that we'll be more impactful as an organisation. So, I mentioned before that influencing different, as part of public affairs, is not just about influencing government and influencing politicians in Westminster. So we kind of had to think about who are the potential organisations or people that VMG can try and influence, and this is kind of what we came up with. So obviously government is one, and there are issues when VMG will be trying to influence government legislation if it has a kind of a veterinary angle that we think is really important. Working with elected politicians from all the different parties, working with opposition MPs when we need to, when we want to get issues raised that the government aren't giving enough attention to. So it's not about just working with Conservative MPs at the moment, because those are the party in power. It's about working with all the different parties. Local government, so some issues are decided by local government on a local level, and in terms of individual members, sometimes you may have issues with, you know, the local planning department or whatever it is. So there may well be opportunities to influence local government as well as national. The wider veterinary sector, so we know there are a lot of different bodies that represent vets and different, you know, organisations, things like BVA, RCVS, for example. So yeah, what's the opportunity to work with those bodies and to influence them and try and ensure that we're part of the conversations, that we're kind of trying to bring the veterinary sector together as one voice whenever possible. Animal welfare organisations, so there will be opportunities sometimes to work with animal welfare organisations on veterinary issues. I guess particularly some of the animal welfare organisations that have a veterinary arm to their work would be one area, but yeah, definitely potential opportunities. Corporates, we know there is a growing number of big corporates that operate within the veterinary sector, and what can we do to influence them? And then finally, academic institutions. So we know there are a lot of, you know, vet schools out there, and the leading vet schools, and we want to be able to influence those vet schools to ensure that they are, you know, teaching the vets of the future the not only all the amazing and really important information on, you know, the animal side of things, but also the management side of things. And actually that's a really key role for us as the organisation that represents, you know, veterinary leaders. We want to ensure that from the very first stage of a vet's education, they're learning all about the potential roles that they have that might be related to management or leadership. So how can we influence them? So I think here I have focused on 3 different areas that I think are really important. And we'll probably use some of them more than others at different times, and it just depends what issues we'll be working on. But to start with, I wanted to cover building our evidence base. So I think the most influential organisations are the ones that have a really good evidence base and ensure that their policy and their campaigns are based on that evidence base, way more likely to be successful. So in terms of what we mean by that and what we're going to be doing, we need to be identifying trends. We need to be ensuring that we're the voice of our members, that we come out to you guys to find out, you know, what are the issues that you're facing, what are the issues that we're seeing across the sector as a whole, and how can we raise those within, you know, the relevant conversations. And we're also looking at, you know, the potential of doing an annual report which will really give that key data each year so that we can track trends and see how some of our influencing work is hopefully benefiting you know, veterinary practices on the ground. Also, obviously, a key part of how we can influence is through trying to influence government and parliament. So again, it probably won't always be, you know, the main focus of our work, but where relevant, we'll be having MP meetings, meeting with devolved politicians as well, producing policy briefings for debates, meeting with relevant government departments, and where necessary, hosting our own parliamentary events or joining up with other organisations who are hosting parliamentary events. And then finally, influencing other bodies and that more general, like, profile raising role for us. So membership driven campaigns. So when there's an issue that we've identified that we really want to work on, it's about coming out to you, the members, and asking for you to help campaign for us as well. Looking at the potential of events and partnerships, and also some of those local issues. Are there toolkits we can provide to assist with local lobbying if we think that that's something that would be beneficial for members? So what do you think we can actually influence on? What are those key issues that you're facing? So obviously my background, I'm not a vet, and whilst I work at Blue Cross, which has a veterinary side of our work, I'm not actively kind of involved in the day-to-day veterinary veterinary operations at Blue Cross. So these are just some initial ideas that I had, but really, really keen to hear from you, the members, in terms of what are those key issues that you think potentially this would be, you know, a great issue for VMG to be campaigning or trying to influence on. So please do, you know, get in touch, drop me an email. I'm really keen to hear from you. But yeah, just for kind of starter for 10, issues I thought we could maybe work on. So COVID-19 and recovery from COVID-19 for veterinary practices and businesses. We know that, you know, the government have had a lot of different schemes out there, which some of us have been able to benefit from. But it's about, you know, how do we ensure that the veterinary sector really can recover from what's been a really challenging, you know, what's it been, 15 months now, and an incredibly challenging time, and ensuring that we get all the government support that we can for veterinary practices across the UK. Another one that I thought potentially was Brexit. So has Brexit had an impact on our staffing levels, on the ability for us to recruit new vets? Is that a key issue for us? Keen to hear what you think. Economic policy more generally, so looking at things like business rates, etc. And is there anything there that we feel we want to influence on? One that's been really, really topical recently is mental health and the veterinary profession, and how the profession, you know, really struggles. There are some really big issues in terms of the mental health of people working within the industry, and what can we do to try and influence change in that area. One that I think I've mentioned before that I think will be really, really key for us as an organisation is veterinary education. I think as VMG, we know that education is so important, and ensuring that education covers leadership and management skills. That's an area where we think we probably can have a lot of influence. So keen to hear your views on that, and if you agree. And then another one that's a little bit left field, but one that we know that's been in the media quite a lot recently. It's online pharmacies, so maybe that's an issue. And I guess more generally, you know, corporatisation of the veterinary sector. Is there things that we can or should be doing or saying, or conversations we should be having? So yeah, that's kind of the end of my brief video update on, you know, what is public affairs, how can VMG use public affairs. But yeah, I'm really, really interested to hear from members. What are those key issues you want us to work on? What are the, you know, areas where you think actually that would be so useful? So yeah, please do drop us an email, and definitely keen to carry on the conversation. So yeah, thank you very much for listening to my little brief political update.